Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored. Today I'm here to review for you Emerge, which is a brand new 2 to 4 player game from Pandasaurus Games, who did provide it to me for the review. In this game you see volcanic islands emerging from the water. Trees will grow on them, birds will fly to them, there'll be turtles and more on them, hopefully, because that's how you're going to score points in this game. Let's go over roughly how the game plays, what makes it tick, and then I'll give you some pros and cons to let you know if it's a game for you. Emerge is a game that's broken down into 8 rounds and each of them has 3 phases. The first 2 are very quick and then there's the main discovery phase. Each round the ship marker will move on 1. It will move depending on the round number and periodically along it will unlock for all players a new sort of worker dice that they'll be able to use from that round onwards. So throughout the course of the game you'll be getting more dice and being able to do more stuff. Then you'll have the chance to do the modify phase, and there's a couple of choices for you here. First of all, you're allowed to remove any modified tiles that you've previously put on your board. You can remove any or all of them as you see fit. Then you can either take a new one from the market and add it somewhere onto your board, or shuffle around all the remaining tiles that are on your board. These modified tiles effectively give special abilities and they refresh each round, but they can also mean you're more likely to be able to do a certain action. And we'll come on to that into the next phase, which is discovery. Effectively, in this phase, which is going clockwise around the table, you're going to roll all of your dice and then assign them to the number value on your player board. So you've rolled 3 number 1s, you put them into the 1 area, and what is either the printed ability or the modified tile over the top of that number 1 is what those dice can be used for. By default, number 1 is to grow trees. So for example, if that was the trees on that number 1 spot with 3 dice there, you could use it on one turn, 1 dice to grow a tree on one of your islands, and then the second turn, 2 dice to grow a second tree on that same island, or you could use 1 dice to grow the first tree on one of your other islands. But what if, say, you've got the trees on number 1 because it's printed on the board, but also the trees covering up by one of those modified tiles on the second space? Well, that basically means you could grow trees from either dices with 1 or 2 pip values on them. So it increases your chance from those rolls to be able to actually use them. As I alluded to, those modified tiles do have one-time abilities that you can use each round. Maybe it's adding 1 to the value of the dice, subtracting 1. It could be re-rolling all of a certain number. Some of these have a dice cost to them, so you have to discard 1 dice to be able to trigger them, but others you can just do. The actions effectively are all the ways you can gain points. First of all, you're probably going to want to sort of grow an island piece. It will start small, but as you spend more dice and you've already got them there, you can turn a small into a medium island and then a medium into a large. Then you've got the stuff that goes onto the islands. You can get up to 4 trees on an island. You could also get 3 different types of animals onto them. So the first and easiest one are the crabs. Costing by default only 2 number 2 value dice from your player board, and again, you could maybe have a modified tile that help you put a crab down. Well, you're going to be able to put a crab onto the island and that will score you points at the end of the game. Once you've got 1 crab there, no more crabs are allowed on that island. It fights them off. But it also means you can then place the next thing, which is a turtle. By default, that costs 3 dice of value 3. So maybe you're now starting to see why you need some of those abilities. Maybe you've got 2 3s and a value 2 dice. You can use one of those abilities maybe to add 1 to that 2, so it becomes a 3. So you can spend them to place 1 turtle onto your island. And now it can't have any more turtles. That's going to be scoring points though. And you can now place the sea lions, which is the final one. They need 4 4-valued dice, so that's quite hard to do. So at that point, you really do need one of those modified tiles on another number that you've hopefully rolled and got, and then you can add that onto the island. You're not all going to be able to do all this in 1 round though, so typically it does suggest in the rules your sort of first round of modifying, hiding, effectively covering up the sea lion thing, because you want to be able to grow your island, get a crab, get a turtle before you even think of being able to put a sea lion down, because you've got to do them in order. But why are you doing all of this? Well, there's some scoring conditions that are going to change from one game to the next, maybe placing so many medium islands down or placing 2 crabs down on a single round. But you're also going to score for those islands. You're going to score basically 1, 2 or 3 times based on if it's a small, medium or large island. And you're going to be multiplying the number of wooden bits on that particular island. So if it's got 4 trees, it's got a crab, it's got a turtle, got a sea lion, and even got a bird, well, that's 8 times whatever the value of size of that island is. So it might be times 3 for an absolute bucket load of points. Your other islands are probably going to score you a little less if you have done that though. But that's still an absolute shed load of points that you're going to be scoring at the end of the game. Now, depending on where you grow your island, and also there is a small market that you can discard dice at the end of a round basically to gain these special ability things, these maybe let you do things a bit easier. So, for example, it's going to cost you normally 3 dice to place a turtle, but maybe one of these allows you to play one for only 2 dice. Or maybe when you put a crab down on an island, oh my god, it grows in size. I'm not quite sure how that happens, but these are cool little bonuses you can pick up either from growing an island in a specific place or from a sort of token market at the side that allow you to do bigger things on a turn. The final thing that is interesting is that you can keep dice on your board between rounds. So, as I was alluding to, you need 3 dice of number 3s by default to put a turtle down onto the board. But what happens if you've got 2 there? You don't quite have enough. Well, you can leave them there for the next round. You're not going to re-roll them, but it means you've sort of locked them in. You've got a good sort of starting point to get that turtle down in the next round. And well, that's kind of the whole game. You're trying to effectively grow 4 islands as big as they will, populate them with as many trees and animals as you can, and do it via this sort of dice sort of system where you're modifying those tiles to make it more or less likely for something to happen. You want to grow trees, you're going to make sure that the printed one on the board and your modified tree tile is there somewhere, hopefully where there's lots of dice on your board. If you're trying to not bother about sea lions yet because you're nowhere near it, cover that one up. That sort of logic, and those have some special abilities which help mitigate a little bit of the luck, and that's kind of how the game of Emerge works. So now you know roughly how the game works, let's go on to why the game may or may not be for you, and we'll start with the sort of, for me, the most obvious point, the dice. I'm often hesitant going into games which rely a lot on dice because of the luck factor that they bring. But there's a few great things in Emerge that, well, I mean, it could still be for you, even if you normally hate dice like I do. Well, there's plenty of mitigation factors. First of all of those modified tiles, well, you can trigger those in cool ways to, increase the value of some numbers, re-roll, and giving you some options there. You can also spend dice to get those research tokens off at the side that are going to allow you to do things easier. As I alluded to, maybe placing a turtle down for fewer dice than you would normally need to, and different things like that that just mean you feel like, I've got around that mitigation, I've been able to do something with less dice, but also means the dice are always useful, because it's like, I've got these 2 random dice at the end of the round, I don't really want to leave them on my board for next round, but you could, and that's another mitigation option for you there. I could spend those for a research token from the market. So I like the way there's a number of ways that you can change the dice values and use them. And then you've also got the fact that those modifier things increase your odds. You can only ever have 2 of one thing. So if you've got the trees printed on the board, you can only have 1 modified tile that gives you another slot for trees. But that still means you've then got a 33% chance of rolling a number that will do something for trees for you. Or let's say you really want the bird to be able to steal it off someone else's island, because then it will bring you a seed that becomes a tree. That's really good for you for scoring, and it gets that bird off their island and onto yours potentially for the end game scoring. Well, you've got 1 bird slot at the start of the game, add another one, and all of a sudden, again, you've got a 33% chance of rolling that number. And when you're rolling an absolute load of dice, your chances are you're going to be able to do it. Touching back onto one of those mitigation things, those research tokens. They're really cool, not only for that mitigation, but because they allow you to have what I think feels like a bigger turn. It feels like I'm not just doing something standard here, I'm getting a cool big win. And sometimes also helping you do one of like the end game or the sort of in-game scoring objectives, like place 2 crabs down in a single round. Well, maybe this token allows me to put a crab down a lot easier, and that's making this turn feel more effective. I'm using less dice to do that, and also maybe helping me towards that objective. Or like I alluded to, place a crab down and it grows the island. That's just like a little extra combo that I wouldn't have got normally. So I like the fact that they do different things, and well, they just give you bonuses in different ways on that turn. It sort of either makes something cheaper or makes something better as a result. So there's some cool sort of things from those research tokens that, like I say, make a individual turn feel a bit bigger and better than others, so it doesn't feel samey throughout the same experience, even if, oh, I've placed a crab on this island, another turn, I've placed a crab on that island, but maybe on one of them you've triggered something extra or got it cheaper. It's also not going to be possible to talk about Emerge without complimenting the visual appearance of the game. First of all, the wooden meeples for the animals, the trees and everything. They are stunning. They really make the sort of board pop with their colourfulness and their awesome shapes as well. And the fact that you put them on the islands, which are, you know, slightly, because they're cardboard, they are slightly raised, so the one level, the small island isn't as big as the large 3-sized island. It just looks cool out on the board, and I think it really does attract attention if anyone's walking past. They're going to be like, oh, what is that you're playing, sort of thing. And just the general look of the game, I think it's eye-catching in a very cool way, and it's because of that sort of strong production quality. Scoring is also a nice and simple sort of affair, because while there are in-game objectives and whoever does them quickest gets more points for them, you just mark that for at the end of the game, like, oh yeah, I did this one first, so I'm going to get the most points for it. And then at the end of the game, it's effectively, how tall is this island? Is it 1, 2 or 3 in terms of small, medium or large? Times the number of stuff on it. And each player can have up to 4 islands, so you're not calculating loads of points. But it is very, very simple. It's one number times another number, and they're relatively small numbers. And it's all done very quickly at the end of the game, which is another pro for me. Of course, despite the dice having a lot of mitigation, there is the chance for luck to creep in. If you roll basically one of each number, you are going to be at a significant disadvantage for someone that's managed to roll a grouping of a certain number. Yeah, you might be able to place 1 tree down, but 1 dice for most of the other things isn't going to be enough to do anything, and that's when you do need and have to rely on those modifier tokens to be able to do anything. Some people are not going to like that, because it does mean that you can have a round where you end up doing a lot less than others, and that can really put you at a significant disadvantage. Even over 8 rounds, 1 bad round can put you back a little bit in terms of points, because they're already onto placing their next island. They've now got a research token that's going to give them a benefit. Well, at least you can buy research tokens from that market with your bad dice to somewhat sort of put off that bad luck, but it is still possible to have a bad round as a result of the dice. Overall, we've rather enjoyed Emerge. It's sort of a really pleasant, not too sort of strenuous, thinky sort of experience. You're spending those dice, which, yeah, they can mean you have a bad round, and over the course of the hour-long gameplay, even that 1 bad round can put you at a little bit of a disadvantage. But there are ways to mitigate. I really do like those research tokens that give you little sort of discounts or bonuses when you do something. The different scoring opportunities in the game, there's a load of those cards, so you're going to see different ones each time. I like those because it's giving you something to aim for, as well as just growing your islands and plopping down as many trees and animals as you can. But a simple scoring and a relatively simple logic of what you're doing on your turn. You've got your dice rolled, now what can you do with them? And those modifier tiles just put that luck, that mitigation of luck, but there's always something you can do with your dice. It's certainly a stunning looking game when it hits the table with some top quality components, and I think a lot of people will enjoy this one. It's not necessarily for full on extreme advanced gamers, but one of those sort of Gateway Plus style games where you've played some basic sort of Ticket to Rides, Carcassonnes. Well, this is the sort of one that maybe you could move on to after a few plays of that and get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And that is Emerge. Let us know if you've played the game in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought of it. And until next time, have an emergingly good day.